You are the evil overlord. You've ruled the world with an iron fist. But after you quit being an overlord as you couldn't deal with all the paperwork, a clumsy young female hero bursts through your door every day claiming to end your reign. This is her 58th attempt. I looked up as my door was kicked in, again. It's been nearly 2 months and Abigail, the hero, still hasn't learned to just knock and open the door. Aha! I've come to end your evil reign. I quit. Remember? Like I told you the last 58 times. I'm no longer the evil overlord. You're lying. You lying liar. You're just saying that so I won't. I sigh, I really don't want to have to fight her. I mean, I was comfortable in my recliner and my book had just gotten to a good bit. Abigail, for the last time, I retired. I quit, put aside my throne and walked away from it all. I don't even know how the fuck you found me here in my cabin, but I was sick and tired of the endless fucking paperwork being an evil overlord involves. So I am an ex-evil overlord, I am not a merciless tyrant and ruler of the evil empire. I'm done. Finished, shuffled off into retirement. Got it? She stood there, confusion clouding her pretty face. I honestly was wondering if she was as dumb as she was bad at fighting really. Okay, I had gone easy on her so far, which was why she still plagued me, but I was beginning to reconsider my vow to no longer kill. I was getting sick of repairing the damn lock on my door. I shook my head, dispelling the thought. No, I would remain true to my word. No matter how annoying this hero was. And honestly, I perversely kind of liked her. She reminded me of my childhood dog, Sherry. She'd been a golden Labrador, as dumb as she was loving. And her death at the hands of the Emperor's Knights had been the incident that started my rise to power, after I swore revenge. I smiled slightly at the memories. They'd been good times, laying waste to the old empire and killing the arrogant corrupt aristocracy. I sighed, recalling what had come next. It had been fun while it lasted, but it's true that wanting and having are two different things, and ruling an entire empire with an iron fist had been a total bitch to do. Although, ruling the world had seemed like the next logical step at the time. Look, Abigail, I'm really not feeling it today. Can we just have a game of chess or something and call it good enough? I'll even let you play as white and spot you a couple of pieces since I'm in a good mood. Oh. I don't know how to play chess. That's the one with knights and horses, right? I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. I really should have known better. Despite the spark of intelligence she'd shown actually managing to find me. I'd gone to great lengths making sure my retirement was undisturbed. Abigail had proven to be single-minded, tenacious, dedicated to her cause. And as dumb as a brick. Abigail? It occurs to me I don't really know anything about you. Why don't you sit down, have a cup of tea with me? I promise it's not poisoned. Look, I've poured myself a cup already, and we can just talk and get to know each other. I mean, it's only polite after all. Heroes should always be polite, don't you think? Abigail blinked, and nodded. Sheathing her sword she came over and sat in the chair next to me, her oh-so-shiny armor quietly clattering as she sat down, perched on the edge. So, why don't you introduce yourself, properly this time? Yes. I'm Abigail. Daughter of Horatio Hornsby, Knight Captain of the last true Emperor, and well, your first knight. I interrupted. Wait, you're Horatio's daughter? Little Abby? Why, I used to bounce you on my knee when you were small. You did? But, your father came to work for me after I overthrew the old emperor, you know, said he never trusted that old lech anywhere near you, that's why he didn't take you to the castle before. Abigail frowned in confusion. That's not right, he was a kind jolly old man, used to give me sweets. Which your father took off you straight away, yes? Abigail nodded, her periwinkle blue eyes clouded as she struggled to remember. Yes. Mother said it was because they'd rot my teeth. I think it was more because they were laced with lust potions. The old emperor liked little girls, you see, a bit too much. You're lying again. How old was the emperor's oldest wife? 9, but that was just politics, wasn't it? I slowly shook my head. I hated to be the cause of the troubled look on her face, but clearly she had an idealized notion of what the old empire had been like. No doubt as the result of the damn fools who romanticized it still, and were also responsible for calling me the evil overlord. Although, I had to agree that objectively they hadn't been entirely wrong on that. Some of the things I'd done, although necessary, weren't good. While I'd been ruminating, stewing in my memories, which was a habit I'd gotten into as I'd gotten older, Abigail had taken a fortifying gulp of tea, trying to make sense of the contradictory notions I'd given her. Into this awkward silence I spoke. Look, Abby, why are you here? Yes, I know you told me, to defeat me and end my reign of terror. But I keep telling you, I'm not reigning anymore, so why are you here? What purpose does defeating me supposedly serve? Abigail frowned again, staring down into her teacup as she struggled to marshal her thoughts, which I had to imagine was a bit like trying to herd geese. Are you sure you're retired and not reigning in terror? Only, well, people are starving, the barons are all fighting each other, and there's all these bands of knights roving around, saying they're the evil emperor's men, and they keep burning and pillaging villages or extorting money and other things, so they won't burn and pillage, and calling it taxes. I stared at Abby for a moment in horror. I hadn't actually thought over much about what would happen after I quit. I just assumed my Lord Chamberlain would take over in my place. Dark gods knows, he'd tried to assassinate me often enough and take my place back in the day. Clearly, things had taken a turn for the worse after I left, and was oblivious to it all. Abby. Doesn't that sound more like an absence of someone ruling the empire? Well. I just thought, evil, you know? I shook my head. Look, evil isn't the same as chaotic. When I ruled there was order. People had enough to eat, and weren't. Well, it wasn't like that. Honestly, who's in charge nowadays really? Abigail shrugged. I don't think anyone is, if you aren't. What happened to Roderick? Ah, my old Lord Chamberlain. Oh, he's long dead. The hero Percival killed him almost as soon as you disappeared. Although really he was after you, but the Lord Chamberlain was pretending to be you and... Well, Percy had never seen you before, you see? I sighed. That sounded like Roderick had always had the worst kind of luck at times. Well, what about after him? Surely someone took over? Well, everyone said you were ruling, but from the shadows, in order to avoid being killed. But there were an awful lot of men who said they were acting for you. Abigail put her teacup down and started to count on her fingers. I interrupted her as she ran out of fingers and before she could start pulling off her armored boots and start in on her toes. All right, I get the idea. Effectively no one has been ruling for the past decade or more then, despite what some people are claiming, but how did you find me? Oh. Father told me, before he died, and I had to look at some old maps to find the village and the forest you were in because the newer ones don't show it anymore. I frowned. I'd done my best before retiring to ensure that the little hamlet I lived some ways outside of had been erased from the records, but clearly I'd missed some. As for Horatio, I was surprised to learn he'd known where I was, but it made sense. He'd probably kept track of me all these years, just in case. Loyal to a fault he'd been, and overprotective. Which now that I thought about it made the situation with his daughter somewhat odd. Abby dear. Did your father tell you to set out and defeat me? Who told you that would sort everything out? Oh no. He'd been against it all along, just as he'd been against me learning to be a hero. It was his new wife's idea. She'd paid for all my lessons this past year and said it would bring honor to the family name. She and my stepsister encouraged me to find you. We sat in silence for a moment, while I thought some dark thoughts about Horatio's unknown second wife and inheritances and where they might go in Abigail's absence. Which lead me to thinking about the sad state my former empire had fallen into. Abigail. I'm thinking perhaps I ought to come out of retirement. Oh really? Would you? Then I can defeat you. I held up a hand to forestall that train of thought. She really was tenacious if nothing else. No. I was thinking of something different. How would you like to be the hero who saves the empire? With me as your trusted advisor, of course. You can say you defeated me if you like, and we can set about putting things to rights. After all, I've done it once already. But I don't want to rule an evil empire? Of course not. A good girl like you shouldn't have to. I'll tell you what we'll do. You can be the hero, and eventually the kind and benevolent ruler. I'll be your trusted advisor, and this time around there's some things I think we'll do it differently, kinder. I'll find someone else to handle the bloody paperwork though, several ones probably. Abigail thought about it a moment, then her pretty face lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. If I'd been 30 years younger. Okay. I'll do it. Where do we start?